spirit right now is in me is just reflective of one that is still trying to. It's interesting because I think a lot of people out here feel this way. I don't know how many people admit to it or talk about it or whatever, but it's this constant, it's this constant, like, I don't even know what to call it. It's a constant desire to really want to be doing something that makes me fulfilled and makes me, gets me up every day to want to do. And it's funny because right now, all of those things, there's a couple of them, but all of those things are things that don't relate to income per se, at least yet, but income, especially when you're looking at, okay, the 9 to 5 or the job that you are working and where you can go with that and where you can take that and how much money you're making off of that. Yes, I know that's probably the number one problem right there. It's the money, but it still is this, for me personally, I can only speak for myself, and I think other people feel this way, but me personally, it's crazy because it's all the time. It's a constant, it's years and years of it. I'm 32 now. I'm going on 33 in January. It's like, why is there still this feel of like, hey, there's, I'm doing every day in some way, form, or fashion, I'm doing the stuff that I love to do, but I have to take 8, 9, 10 hours a day to be doing something that I could honestly give two fucks about. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, it's like I'm good at what I do, but I'm not passionate about it. And it doesn't drive me the way that the things that I am passionate about drive me. But one pays the bills and one allows you to say, well, I'm stacking for something bigger to walk away from that. But like my boy EA said, everything you want, you gotta wait a year. It's like, it's like waiting a year waiting a year in your teens turn into your 20s, waiting a year in your 20s turns into your 30s. And this is how you get caught in that trap. I feel that I see so many people, our parents and other folks get caught in where it's like, yo, you wake up one day and the whole thing's passed you by. Now 50 or 60, you got kids. Now you really feel like you got to be stuck in the rat race. And it's just, some days I cope with it well, and some days I'm like, yo, this shit is wild, and that's really what I'm feeling right now, G. That's like, it's and it's constant, bro. I know one thing you said on our last pod, you said one thing you love about what we do is it's like therapy. And here we are, because your boy is feeling like he in therapy right now sometimes, and it's interesting, but that's how I'm feeling today. And I don't know, like, do you like, because you're not, I feel like you're like, yo, I'm taking my time with how I'm approaching all of this work stuff per se. You're more focused on like your passion. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you're like, yeah, I'm not about to just be doing whatever, because, it's a job, or because, I can get a certain salary. I can get at a certain salary level or title level. It's like, what your spirit craves, and you kind of seem to be approaching it that way as far as, your passions and what you care about and what your greater purpose is. Right?
Yeah. So as far as like how I approach work, I think the only way to really give people a decent picture is to tell kind of my full story. Not like my entire life story, but like as far as relating to work, going back everybody, everybody's parents tell them to get good grades because good grades mean you're going to get better job opportunities or better, at least better opportunities as far as colleges. And then you graduate from the better college, even if it isn't with good grades, and you get the better job, right? That's supposedly how the system works.
That's how we
Um,
were all brought up. Yep.
yeah, my dad, he was, I would say he was like naturally smart, but he used his smarts to chase women and do drugs and party. And like when he looked back on his life after having me, he really wanted me. He was always pushing me to do really well in science, technology, math, those types of subjects, because he was smart enough to see where society was going and where the jobs were going.
STEM.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was always encouraged to do well in school in general, but especially um, you, and then also as I was naturally good with mathematics, naturally
Yes.
mathematically. So I don't, I think if I was just an average student, he wouldn't have pushed me as hard. But given that I had a natural inclination toward that, he did. I mean, he wasn't, I don't want to say like he pushed me like he was like one of these asshole dads. He just emphasized and encouraged me to do well in school.
Of course. Yeah.
He wanted me to make a lot of money at the end of the
Right.
day.
Yeah.
And he envisioned me being like a CEO of some bank or some, financial institution. That's what he wanted for me, not out of not out of any sense of like not wanting me to live the life I wanted, but because he felt like that was the life that would have made it best for him, or would have
Right.
made life easiest for him. So I don't hate on any of the decisions he made in that regard. As far as the way he was pushing me, because I see, yeah, he wanted what was in his mind. He wanted what was best for me. He truly did. My beliefs don't align with his, and so things that haven't gone like that. But I'm not upset with any of his decisions in that regard. But to get to the point, I went to college. I went to a small liberal arts college on an academic scholarship because I did really well in high school, and I was planning on studying like accounting and economics and business. And accounting was just not for me. Super dry, dull, boring. And
Mhm.
then economics, ironically, my very first economics professor, who was my financial advisor in college, and he was the chair of the economics department, but he was also starting the ethics department at Randolph Macon at the time. And ethics and philosophy, as you know, are intertwined, entangled.
Right.
And so like I said, ironically, he pushed me toward taking some ethics courses. And of course, the basic ethics course, the one that's just called ethics straight up, is a philosophy course. And I fell in love and haven't really looked back. Ended up with a philosophy degree, economics minor, dropped the accounting altogether. And so I was aiming to, get like a banking job or something like that right after college. And then my parents went through a pretty crazy divorce that started, I would say, spring break of my senior year of college. So like March of 2011. And that was pretty intense. And because of that, I went back home to stay with my mom right after I graduated and took a job as like a camp counselor at the YMCA down there in
Mhm.
Middlesex, because as you know, there ain't a whole lot of work.
There's not much going on. And if you don't have internet infrastructure, that's about what it's going to be.
Right. So I was working as a camp counselor down there, just trying to keep my mom straight. And after doing that for about 5 or 6 months, I wasn't, I couldn't handle living in Middlesex anymore. I had a couple of my homies from Randolph Macon pretty much come and rescue me. They had a job out in Westmoreland at the time, actually, funny enough, another like kind of similar to the Middlesex area, but at least I was living with some friends. They had gotten a job at a dog kennel out there. So they hooked me up with that job. And the whole plan from the very jump was like, we're just going to get our money up and move to Richmond together. And
Mhm.
with us having a little bit, I'm not even going to front, like, we all have a little bit of white privilege and connections with like their parents. And and people that have a little bit of money. And we were only there for a month, got out of there, got a house, or I guess it was like a month and a half, and got a house in the south side of Richmond. Went out there, and that was when I started looking for my first quote unquote real job, which I ended up working at New York Life, which an insurance agent, I don't really, now looking back, I don't consider that a real job. At the time, I thought it was a real job, because of the perception. And this is gonna turn out to be a longer story than I planned, but
it's all good.
All of it connects.
Right.
And so started working in New York Life. My mom had gotten a boyfriend at the time. He was an older fella, but he had money. He has money, I guess. I don't really talk to them anymore, but got that guy to buy 4 life insurance policies for all of his children. He had I think 2 sons and 2 daughters. Yeah, 2 sons. It was 4 policies anyway. And so that's like, as a life insurance salesman selling 4 policies in one day, that's like a pretty good day, And I went out partying with my buddy who got me the job, and had a few too many drinks. And on the way home, well, the whole story actually is on the way to another friend's house. After I had been drinking a little bit, I got pulled over by a state cop going like 80, 81 and a 55. And I really thought, like, I am fucked. I'm getting a DUI. Like, my shit is fucked right now. He never even asked me if I had been drinking. He just was like, what the fuck are you doing going so fast? I guess I held my shit together, and like my nervousness overpowered my drunkenness, and he could see I was nervous and like a young kid, and he just probably thought I was super nervous. I don't know what like kind of divine intervention I had working for me right there. He did not even ask me if I had been drinking, and this was like 8:30 at night, so it's like totally possible for me to have been drinking. And I was pretty drunk. Like, I'm surprised he didn't ask. I'm surprised he didn't smell it on me or something, but I got lucky.
I think I know what story this is too. So this is wild. Yeah.
I got a reckless ticket. Then I continue, instead of just at that point, I should have just gone back home, called it a night, got lucky, fuck it. And I in my drunken mind, I continue to party, and I go to another friend's house, play some beer pong, drink some beers, hang out with them a little while. Then I had another friend that lived like right up the street, and the friends out at the current place I'm at playing beer pong and stuff, they didn't smoke weed. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna go to my other friend's house and can keep drinking because they smoke, and I'll smoke with them and then head home. So I guess at that point I just was too fucked up because I had been smoking and I was already too drunk. And so I left their place, which is, if you're familiar with Middlesex, which I know you are, or anybody listening, in the Pankatank Shores. I left, and I was almost back to where my mom was staying at the time in Urbana. And I turned into what I thought was her driveway, and it was actually another house like on the road into Urbana, between Cook's Corner and Urbana.
Yeah.
There's another one, just a random house. Like, there's not that many, on the left-hand side of that road.
Right.
I just pulled up in there, and very slowly, very cautiously, like, I guess I kind of came to right then, like, oh, this is not my mom's house. Like, where the fuck am I right now? And I was going to pull back out onto the road and get, because I think at that moment I realized, okay, I didn't know exactly where I was, but I was like going to get back out on the road and figure out where I was,
Yeah.
But and with a front wheel 2-wheel drive Acura CL 2000.
I remember the Acura.
I love that car. I drove it right into the ditch, going like, caused absolutely no damage. That's how slow I was going. I was going like literally 2 miles an hour.
Right.
But I drove it right into the ditch, and with it being front wheel drive in a deep ditch, the tires had nothing to catch on to. So yeah, cops show up like an hour later, and I again, I guess I had an angel looking out for me. They charged me with drunk in public rather than DUI because the car was not running. I
You are you are lucky
so
son of
lucky.
gun boy.
I know, right? So anyhow, I tell that whole story to say that I get back to Richmond, and because it was within my first 90 days of working at New York Life, they suspend me / put me on probation / basically I don't have a job.
Yeah.
So then I'm also in trouble, and I know that I need to basically start working community service hours for this charge, that 2 charges from the same date that I have pending, one reckless and one drunk in public. It's separate, 4 hours apart. It's just embarrassing.
Yeah.
But
I don't believe that. Just looking back at it, it's wild though. It's wild.
It's a crazy story.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I began doing some community service hours, and I also pick up a job under the table working for a guy that and I unfortunately I can't tell too many details of this part of the story just because
right. No, I got
too entangled and too intertwined with some personal family stuff. But
yeah,
this guy owned a paper warehouse, and he had this pretty sweet deal with a larger paper corporation that ordered like this basically aircraft carrier full of paper items from China. And they didn't use a lot of the specialty products, but it was still cheaper for them to get the gigantic package and just give this, this guy that owns this warehouse, the paper that they didn't use to recycle. And then he made money selling the recycled paper.
a Dunder Mifflin gig.
Yeah. So pretty good gig for him. So all I was doing was baling paper. Think about it as like a farmer baling hay. Like I literally was throwing paper into a baler, like recycled paper, and then baling it, and then having somebody on the forklift take it off the baler and put it in a truck. Right. So I don't want to tell like I've already taken up too much time telling the story, trying to get to the part where I'm trying to get to, but basically some crazy shit happened, and I'll tell this story on another podcast another day. But I ended up having my feet run over by a forklift.
I remember that
at that warehouse.
Totally remember that. Yep.
And
totally remember that.
Was basically hospitalized, couldn't walk. There was a chance I was never going to walk again. I went into emergency surgery, did some pretty intensive rehab, physical therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic care, all sorts of different things to just literally get back on my feet. Like you hear that as a metaphor a lot, but for me, it was literal getting back on my feet.
Right.
6 weeks not walking, then I guess you could say I graduated to crutches, although I fell twice while on crutches. So like it wasn't I wasn't quite ready really. So I guess it was about July. This happened April 4th, 2012. Around the end of June, beginning of July, I finally was able to get rid of the crutches and start walking super gingerly for like another 3 months, I would say. But what had happened was, in the meantime, I had connected with a lady that actually owned an Allstate insurance agency right in the same area that I had gone to college out there in Ashland. And because I already had my life insurance license from working at New York Life, she just needed like an office assistant. And the fact that I had insurance license was like, boom, super bonus, So she hired me. And then, the whole point of telling all this story is like you were saying, basically, you feel like I've had it. I don't feel like I have it figured out, but I do think I'm on the right track in a lot of ways. But the way that I approach work or my career. So I was working with her for a while. And then at a certain point, it was just like this, I just can't see myself doing insurance for the rest of my life,
Yeah.
So I was still young. I had a buddy that his dad owned a pizza chain out there. It's called Vocelli Pizza, and he owns the one out in Chesterfield on Hall Street. So I had a situation which wasn't too bad. I could get a ride because his son didn't live too far from me, so I didn't have to drive. And I was just kind of using that to figure out what I wanted to do with my life after all the crazy shit that had happened. And then I guess so this is coming up on January. So this is 2013. Yeah, so January and February of 2013, I was working there. And then
that was after we had lived together for a little bit when I left Radford and came to Richmond, right? Because that would have been 13. No, that probably was around that same time then, right? No, if it was 11.
Yep. So I when I first moved back to Richmond after being injured, that was when you moved in with me, because I was living over there on Laburnum and Harvey. That was when you lived with me, and then Jesse moved out, so we had to move out.
Right.
And I moved back into Doswell because that was close to where I was working up there in Ashland anyway.
Right. Okay. Yep. So that's that time frame. That's right.
Yep. So then I left there, started working at Vocelli's. It was only there for a couple months and was pretty much like, I need to restart again. That was when I moved back home to Middlesex, and that was the longest I've ever gone without smoking weed, because that was, I was still thinking I gotta quit smoking, because I actually had gotten a job at what is that financial place? Genworth. I got a job. I got a job at Genworth Financial, and then this was earlier in my. I can't remember exactly when that was, but I got a job there, and then I failed the drug test. So then March 2013, I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna smoke, and I'm gonna, hunker down and get a real job. That was my thought process anyway. And being out in Middlesex, what I landed was a job at M&M hardware store and Ostra. I was working two jobs at once out there, trying to just stack and hustle. And that is when I met. We kind of hit it off. She had a boyfriend at the time. We were both working at Ostra. After I was working 7 days a week between the two jobs, and after I got burnt out from working 7 days a week, I quit the job at M&M and was just working at Ostra full time. And at some point, I think at the end of August 2013, she left her boyfriend. We got together, and not long after that, she was pregnant. Then we moved out to Mechanicsville, and I got my first quote unquote real job with Wells Fargo. And that's kind of where this story really starts.
Right.
But I had to add all of that as a prequel. I guess I didn't really have to, but it makes a lot more sense when I do.
Yeah.
So then, so basically I was working at Wells Fargo end of 2013 to middle of 2015. I got promoted 2 times while I was there. And I had 4 managers while I was there. And I was also one of the whistleblowers in all of the fraudulent practices that Wells Fargo was in the news for back in 2015, 2016. I was
they were even promoting that those same practices even reached you and reached your branch and your work.
Oh yeah, I was one of the whistleblowers.
Wow. I don't think I ever knew that. G, that's new for me to hear too. That's interesting.
Yep. But you know how corporate politics works, man.
Yeah.
They pretend like they want you to be ethical and blow the whistle, and they've got an ethics hotline. And then you call that and you do that, and they come and do the investigation. They fire the people that they have to, the sacrificial lambs, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then they subtly harass you.
Yeah.
In ways that they can't get in trouble for it, but it was like, you're supposed to be on our team. Why are you blowing the whistle? So I couldn't deal with that much longer, and I left. And this was around the time where, as you're talking about, I started kind of dialing into what is my purpose? What do I really want to do with my life? Like,
right.
banking just ain't it, bro. Like
Right.
I like economics, I like finances, but I'm such a big picture guy. You know, I did ultimately get my degree in philosophy, and so when I think about finance and think about the financial industry that we live in here in America and economics on a global scale, I just feel like we need a total overhaul and a total revolution and some brand new creative ideas, negative interest being one of my favorites, and universal basic income being another one that I think people might be surprised to hear me say that I'm an advocate for, considering um, that we often uh, seem to be against the left, but I actually agree with them on abortion being one, UBI being another, and anyhow, that's a whole different story. But
Right.
this is the point where I started dialing into like, what is my purpose? What do I want to do with my time, with my day to day, and the place that I had rehabbed from my injury, the place I did my physical therapy, my chiropractic work, my acupuncture work, my massage work, and even personal training. Once I had gotten to a point where I could start strengthening my feet, I did some gym work, some workouts in there with some personal trainers, and I even did some nutrition counseling. Man, I took advantage of everything they had over there, to try to start walking again, literally.
Right. Right.
So I had a pretty good relationship with everybody over there already as a patient. So basically, as soon as I told them that I was looking to get out of banking, they were like, "Yeah, we can find a spot for you," because they just kind of liked me. Um, and so they ended up making me the new patient coordinator over there. I was basically the face of this facility from August 2015 until October 2017. Yep. And the only reason I left, that's one of my first jobs that I can say I truly loved. I liked that job. I liked the patients. I liked the vibe. Working in what we both still talk about a lot on this show, and as a big interest to us, and that's alternative medicine in general, whether that chiropractic care, acupuncture. The physical therapist that I had, his name was Dr. Vesley. He was very open to whatever works, whatever makes you feel better, whatever gives you strength. So yeah, it was a really good experience. But the reason I ended up leaving there was it was a partnership. It was two owners. One was Jewish, and the other one, he's a very quirky guy. And he was a Catholic Scientologist. How you reconcile the two, you'll have to ask him.
Wow.
But yeah, exactly.
Wow.
That's how I feel about that. So what had happened was they kind of, the way that they are, just their personalities, kept each other in check really well. And their partnership was actually, it worked pretty good because their differences kind of canceled each other out, and what they agreed on was actually pretty beneficial for the practice as a whole. But what happened was Dr. Rudman, the Jewish owner, got cancer, throat cancer, and was unable to be around for the extended period of time. I hear he's back now, but when I left, he was not around, and basically when he was not around, the other owner just started implementing all of his ideas, the ones that weren't being implemented before because of the other owner. And the power dynamic, the whole vibe just kind of shifted in there when that happened, and I wasn't about it anymore. So I got out of it. And then I was kind of scrambling at that time because I should have had more of a plan.
Right.
But that was one of those moments where I was kind of leaving it up to the good Lord.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate. One of the girls that worked there, her brother owned a renovation company. And that's when actually we talked about my friend Tyler on the last podcast. I met him working that renovation job for a few months.
Yeah.
But they knew that I wasn't planning on doing that for the rest of my life. But they also knew that I was, I was a straight up guy. I showed up to work on time and I did what they asked me to do.
Yeah.
So they liked me. And when I finally got another job, it was one of those contract temp agency jobs with Bank of America. It was really good money, dude. It was like $30 an hour. But no benefits, and you're on a contract. You don't have any fucking security. There's no job security at all. So my contract was coming up and they hadn't guaranteed that I was going to get another one. So this was January, October 18. I started there. End of October, my contract was going to run up. And a friend of mine, a fraternity brother of mine from Randolph-Macon, was working at a ticketing agency called AJ Tickets. He was on the concert side, but they had a sports department too. And he kept telling his people, like, look, man, I got a buddy that he's smart with numbers, he's smart with economics, and he's into sports. Like, this is a job for him. You know what I mean?
I remember when you first told me about it too, I was like, yo, that's actually pretty dope.
Yeah.
Remember when I came down there?
You interviewed for it. I got you in there for the interview.
Damn right.
And so I worked there for a couple of years. And the only reason I left there was COVID. COVID really decimated the sports and entertainment industry. So I was fortunate enough because I was making enough money where my unemployment check was really good there, while the federal what was it called? The additional
stimulus
benefits
package or whatever.
No, the additional unemployment benefits that the federal government was providing.
Oh yeah, that's right. They added more to it. That's right. Yeah. At the time, I think.
And so during COVID, I guess it was well, throughout the entire time I had been hitting up the place where in Virginia in 2019 they finally granted medical cannabis to authorized patients. And given that I had my feet run over by a forklift, I was obviously qualified for my pain. And when I went in for that appointment, I pretty much went in knowing that I was going to get my certificate, but what I was focused on was getting a job. And I was like, I will tell you straight up, I pretty much bugged them to get this job. That's how I got the job. I bugged them into giving me the job. I took my resume to my appointment as a patient. And I said, I want to get my foot in the medical cannabis industry. And I have experience as a new patient coordinator at the Advanced Wellness Center at an alternative wellness facility. And they talked to me a little bit. It was obvious that they liked me, but they were like, we just started this business. The program in Virginia hasn't really started to blossom yet, but once it starts to pick up, we'll definitely be in touch with you. And about every 6 to 8 weeks, I would email. I would literally email them every 6 to 8 weeks, like, hey, I really want to get in the industry. One way or another. I'm getting this job.
Whether it's from you or somewhere else. So it just might as well be you because it's more convenient for me.
And so after about doing that, like probably 5 or 6 times over the course of a year, I hadn't heard anything back. So I was like, I guess I'm going to give up, and then I was doing some under the table work funny enough, it was for the brother of one of my bosses at AJ Tickets. He owns a gun business, firearms business, and he needed some additional hands at a gun show out there in Doswell, funny enough, where I had used to live. And I'm out there selling guns, hustling guns, and this guy comes up to me and I'm like, damn, this dude looks kind of familiar. And we start chatting and I'm like, Morgan. He's like, yeah. he's like, oh yeah, Garnett, right? And I'm like, yeah. I start laughing. He calls me Garnett instead of Garnet. But I just let it go at this point because he's
I
one
thought
of those.
you were saying that on accident.
No,
I was like, why did you call yourself
no,
Garnett?
that's what he
calls
yeah,
you.
that he still calls me
Yes.
that now. But I don't correct him because it's just
Yeah,
one of
at
those
this
things.
point, whatever. Yeah.
And I was like, man, I really am ready to, like, start working for y'all, like the moment that you're ready for me to. He was like, you know what? Business is picking up. Let me give his brother is a co-owner in the business. He was like, let me give my brother a call and we'll see if you can come in a couple weeks on Wednesday, because Wednesday is our busy day. Wednesday is the only day where they do in-person appointments. So
Right.
I'm like, word. A couple weeks later, he hits me up and go in on a Wednesday and help him out, and everything goes smooth. And they're open on Saturdays too. So he's like, hey man, we'll work you Wednesdays and Saturdays, and until either you find another full-time job or we have enough work for you to work full-time here. And that was fucking fortunately this podcast, I mean, maybe I'll get in trouble saying this, but I think I'm small enough to be still safe as far as the size of the podcast. But that was fucking awesome time because he was paying me in cryptocurrency and I was still collecting unemployment benefits.
Yeah.
And being that I was only working 2 days a week, it was like I didn't really feel bad about collecting unemployment benefits because it was like I'm just almost basically just helping this guy do some part-time bullshit anyway that it's almost legal to get paid under the table for,
Yeah.
So I didn't feel that bad about it. But then as the federal benefits were about to expire, about what is it, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, well, I guess they expired like September 6th, so that was only like 16 days ago.
Yeah, not long.
But it was mid-August, and then, I was starting to feel the pressure, so I was like, all right, I need to get another job, and doesn't look like he's going to be able to give me the full-time job here. So I was putting a bunch of applications out, and I got a job at Golf Galaxy.
Right, remember that. Mm-hmm.
And I was, I could have done well there, but they're also owned by Dick's Sporting Goods, and they're super, super corporate. So I would have had to been cross-trained, and it would have taken me like way longer than I really wanted to get to where I really wanted,
Yeah.
But the good Lord was looking out for me again, man. This chick that was working at the natural medicine clinic, she was working there full time, and I was there, when I was doing the part time. Right after I started working at Golf Galaxy, she up and quits. And Morgan calls me and he's like, hey man, if you still want that full-time position, it just opened up. And I'm like, yes.
Yes.
So that's the story of how I fell into the medical marijuana industry. And
that's
yeah.
Awesome.
But
it was a journey though. It was a journey getting there, and you are doing something that you're very passionate about and is a part of part of your long-term, what I think will be a long-term story.
Yeah. And I think it's just another, for me, like the way that I interpret it on a personal internal level is in 2020, and this story, and we even did a podcast right at the beginning of 2021, first beer in a year here. Yeah. I went 2020, I didn't drink. And
right.
To me, that was about, because I love drinking. I never planned on quitting for the rest of my life. And I do think that alcohol is one of those, I mean, you talk about the epitome of a balancing act. You don't want to be too drunk. Like, that's not a good feeling. But
no, it's not.
But if you're somebody that enjoys drinking, it's like, you can't deny that there's something enjoyable about a little alcohol buzz.
Yeah.
At least for me, I love it. And I'm also real enough with myself that it's like, I don't want to ever love it too much,
Right.
And I want to have control over it. And I want it to be me deciding to drink and not me needing to drink.
Right.
And so I took the whole year off. And at the end of the year, what it taught me was willpower is real. Like, if you really want something, there are no excuses in this world. Nobody can ever tell me anything. Everything sounds like an excuse to me now. Even when I do things in my own head, And if I don't accomplish something that I say I want, then it's like, well, you didn't really want it that as bad as you're telling yourself that you wanted it. Because if you really wanted it, you can do anything you want if you really have the willpower to do it.
Right.
And I think that getting this job was just another testament, another sign, another synchronicity of showing me like, dude, willpower literally is everything. If you have the will, you can the way will make itself. And like I said, I fucking annoyed this guy until I got the job, dude. And like, not only that, like the what are the odds of him coming to my table?
I know exactly.
You know, like I willed that
things
shit
coming
into
back
existence.
things coming back full circle, manifesting it, like no, and that's exactly what I think of when I hear you tell that story. But I think you telling that whole entire story over the course of the last 30-45 minutes really does tell the story when you end it like that, though. You can't capture that same feel.
If I had told that story as, yeah, I lost my job due to COVID, and then I really wanted this other job. I mean, I could have still told it in a way where it would have hit, you know, I guess it still would have made the message still would have been delivered. But if you understand everything that came before that, leading up to that, it's like, damn, this kid really has been through the ringer.
No, for real, seriously though. And obviously, you know, I know about quite a bit of that. And but hearing